How's it going, YouTube? I know that um, it's been a long time since I've done anything. I mean, it was February since the last time we talked about this subject matter. Last time we covered the 1 to 100 system, um, what the D8s mean, favor, anti favor, um, the carryover part of the system. And we spent about an hour on the subject matter. I don't know how much time I have before the kids wake up. Essentially speaking, what we're going to cover today is how we build a character in this system. Essentially speaking, there are two ways about it, and one way is pertinent to the indie game, and I'm not going to cover that. Essentially speaking, you're either assigned a number of dice or you are assigned a number of points. The number of dice is pertinent to the indie game. We're not going to talk about that. So, essentially speaking, um, the basic is a 50-point character, no cost. You see, whenever you're building a character, you don't have to worry about cost. You're handed 50 points, do what you want with it. That's the most basic level character. I don't do that. Mostly because I don't typically want to go through the rigmarole of getting you into the position where you're working with a group and getting you into the position where you're able to do stuff. I typically assign 100 points to start a character, no cost, because most of the time what people do is they spend 50 points on their character and then they take the rest and they use it on their equipment. Um, as opposed to saying, "Oh, you're a farm boy who your father is an ex-knight or something of that particular issue, and you happen to inherit his skills, haha." And this is where those 50 points go to, and the rest you're going to have to work on as you develop your character. And oh yeah, you get your father's old rusty armor and weapons and his nearly on his deathbed horse. That doesn't work. So 50 gold. You take that 50 points, whatever you don't use on your character, essentially we turn it into gold. And that gold is what you spend on what you come into the game with. Um, essentially. Um, the monetary system can be anything, essentially speaking. Um, let's talk about the character sheet. At the very top, you should have your name, not just your character's name, but your name, and um, essentially speaking, your between characters experience. Uh, I prefer to call it soul insight because this is you on the very very inside. This is who you're going to be between characters. This is going to help you develop new characters, but that's the indie game. The indie game, there's a lot of reincarnation. Your character bips it, that's fine. That's fine. You take some of the points off of your character, you add it together, you divide by the variable, you have extra experience to put into your soul insight, you go back through the maze, boom, you got a character. Um, for the sake of the system that I am teaching to you, we're not going to do it that way. You have your character's name, your experience, your name, your experience, your character's name, and whatever else you want available for the sake of the game that you're running. Let's say you're running a futuristic sci-fi game, so it might be tech points, or it might be junk for the sake of building random stuff or whatever. But essentially speaking, there are some things that are fixed, like your main attributes. Your main attributes are corpus, no, psyche. Psyche is everything that your mind is, and their sub-attributes. Your sub-attributes are your logical mind, your creative mind, and your willpower. The higher your willpower, the more psychic ability that you might have. So you might treat those individual sub-attributes differently. What if you're a character who's more creative than logical? What if you want to play a Star Trek game where you get to play Vulcan? Well, guess what? Your logical mind would be much, 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 much more greater than your creative mind. Logical mind represents that part of your mind that is constructive, that is logical as it dictates, that is capable of sorting out problems. So if you were using your psyche to resolve a problem, like for instance, a math problem, you would use your logical mind. If you were using your mind to create art, you would be using your creative mind. If you were using your mind to sense what another person is thinking, you would be using willpower. Then there's the body. There is corpus. Corpus represents your physical presence. You will be using corpus to figure out what your vitality is or hit points. You will be using your corpus to discern physical activities. And essentially, the sub-attributes for that is flexibility, raw strength, and endurance. If you were running a marathon, you would be using corpus and endurance. Essentially, the sub-attributes are pools from which you can roll extra dice from. I'm going to be boxing in the most recent boxing tournament. I'll be using my endurance to make sure that I don't fall down on the mat, if you know my meaning. Raw strength. Once again, we're at the boxing match. The raw strength plus my corpus is what I'd be rolling, to knock another motherfucker out. You know what I'm saying? Flexibility. Flexibility is about how well can you tumble, how well can you jump, how well can you move your body out of the way of a sword strike or of a punch. Once again, we're going to the boxing match flexibilities, how well I can bob and weave. You know what I'm saying? Before, I use my raw strength and my endurance to take a hit. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so that's corpus. Then there's aura. The way this game is designed, aura is how we use magic. For instance, our potency, which is mana in the way this is designed, our potency is essentially speaking, I have a breath now. It's weird. Potency is the number of points that we can use and gather to cast spells, which is directly equal to our aura. Beneath aura, our sub-attributes are AK, arcane knowledge, KI, key. For those of you who don't know what ki is, ki, chi, prana, the force. These are this is naturally occurring internal energy. Ki is what you use in Reiki. Ki is what you use whenever you're creating martial arts spiritual effects. I run a little bit faster. I jump a little bit higher. I hit a little bit harder. Ki is what you're using whenever you're, Ken from Street Fighter, and I think it's Street Fighter, and you're going Hadouken, and you throw off that ball of energy, that's ki. Fuck, what's the third? Give me a minute. We might have a character sheet here. The details. No! Crap! Apparently, on the character sheets that I have not yet dealt with the third. Ray. Well, anyways, this will allow me to better detail to you what's going to be on the character sheet that you will build. Arcane knowledge, ki, and what was the third? BE. BE is in case you're playing vampires, your aura directly derives your BE or your E, which is your essence. There is, if you are playing a vampire, you will be gathering other people's BE, which is blood essence. Essentially speaking, we'll get down to it, but essentially speaking, on your character sheet, you should have BP, which is blood points. Blood points is the direct gathering of blood essence. At least I think. No, there's BE here. I wonder what BP is. Or BPT. Sometimes I create shit and I forget to make notes on it, but we will be gathering basically the essentials. I guess I don't remember what the third under aura is. Somewhere around the house there is character sheets that have the third under aura, the third sub-attribute. I don't currently remember what it is. If I happen to find one that has the third sub-attribute under it, I'm sure I will remember by then, and I will be able to convey that to you or annotate it here or whatever. Essentially speaking, primary attributes are attributes that you roll whenever you do not have a skill or whenever you have a challenge to your mind, your body, or your aura, which is your spiritual part of your physical presence. Essentially speaking, it used to be soul, but that did not make any sense spiritually speaking. If your soul was expressing in the physical presence, it would be a much bigger thing and a much less controllable thing, and thusly we said, that doesn't work. No. So what we decided to do is to go with a theory of mine. Essentially speaking, this game is built by me and a gentleman called Jesse Atten, and there used to be a fellow who helped us out with that by the name of Robert Bridgeforth III. Robert Bridgeforth Marshall III, but he is no longer in our group. There was a sort of political disagreements amidst us. We are no longer friends. I hope he is doing well, but we are no longer friends. Beneath attributes and sub-attributes, there is what race you're playing, and that's really dependent on the game that you're going to develop around the system. Okay, essentially speaking, my game is my game. I will be developing a business off of that game, but essentially speaking, I believe that the system should belong to everybody. I believe that you should have a system in which you can build a game around. So that's why we're doing this. So if you didn't get it the first time, essentially speaking, as far as the development of this game is concerned, for the now, it's me and my buddy Jesse Atten. I should not be giving you names, but regardless, this is, me, Ben Mannon, and my buddy Jesse Atten are the guys who are developing the game around which this system has been built. Our system is about supporting role playing, not saying, well, there's this mechanic in the way of your ability to role play. Essentially speaking, we are creating rules around and supporting role playing as opposed to saying, well, there's this thing over here and you can't really role play that because of this system here. Okay, so there's race, and that's really pertinent to what you're building. If your game is pertinent specifically to humanity and there is only humans, it would not be race. Okay? It would be something else pertinent to your game. Vit mod. Okay, Vit mod is something I and Jesse specifically came up with. This was non-existent before Jesse was helping me. Essentially speaking, this is Jesse's idea. I think it's a fantastic idea. Vit mod, vitality being your hit points. If you wish to go with HP mod, go for it. Essentially speaking, you assign a point there, and you can level that point up. But essentially speaking, it starts off at 1 point, and your Vit mod, you times that versus your corpus to attain your vitality. So you start off with 1 point, and you are capable of leveling that up. That 1 point is automatic. It does not come out of your 50 whenever you're developing your character, or your 100 whenever you're developing your character. And essentially speaking, it starts off as 1 times your corpus. If your corpus happens to be 10, you start off at 10. If your corpus happens to be 6, you start off at 6. Essentially speaking, whenever you're first developing your character, you are not permitted to go in excess of 10 points on anything, because you're just starting off your character. If we allowed you to do that, you would be uber out the gate. Also, it really prevents you from overspending your points. If you start off with 100 and you want to be able to buy gear, even clothes on your back, you're going to have some left over. Even 25 gold is good. Now, in this system, I've pretty much thought out that, the monetary system needs to go with you. Because if you're making a basic medieval game, there you go. You have a monetary system. If you're making a game in the year on Earth of the 1700s, essentially speaking, you were playing in and about around the time of the frontier leading up to the Revolutionary War. Money doesn't exactly work in that time period as it does here, but it's close. Okay? Essentially speaking, in that time period, you had gold pieces, and gold pieces were about an ounce of gold and were worth quite a bit. And then you had silver pieces, and those silver pieces were about an ounce of silver and were worth a little bit less than gold, but quite a bit. And then you didn't really have coppers per se. I don't clearly remember the monetary system during that time in America, but essentially speaking, one of the things that they would do to make change for a silver piece is they would chop up that silver piece into little pie pieces, and they would be called bits of a silver, or something of that like. Well, in this system, essentially what we have for the game And I think that I should share this with you, and you should make your own decisions about it, and that you should do with it what you want. Even though we are not staying at the top of the character sheet, I think I should tell you about this at this point, even though we're going to take up another goddamn hour. Fuck it. The monetary system is money in jewels. You have mana crystals, which should be changed to potency crystals, or magic crystals. We have energy crystals, which, essentially speaking, in the indie game, there are means of transport that are dependent on energy crystals, and those energy crystals have become a means of currency. Anyways, and then there are quartz crystals. Quartz crystals in the game that I've developed are rare enough that they are worth more than platinum. And we are going from the most expensive to the least expensive. The most of value to the least of value. So, essentially speaking, there is magic crystals, energy crystals, quartz crystals, which are really nice to have on hand, because there's a lot of machinery that depends on it in the game that we run, me and Jesse, and essentially speaking, beneath that is platinum pieces. Platinum pieces is exceedingly rare, and very valuable, and is simply money. It has no real use in the world. It's just money. Then there are gold pieces, and then there are silver pieces, and the one thing that I do not have on this is bit pieces. Essentially speaking, you chop your silver piece into about 10 pieces, which is the way they do it in the game system that we run. And those 10 pieces of a silver essentially is the kind of stuff that you would utilize to pay for your groceries. You would use a couple of those pieces to pay for your groceries. You would use a couple of those pieces to pay for your rent. You would use a couple of those pieces to pay for this, that, and the other. They're the low-end monetary stuff that pays for your everyday bills. Silver pieces, essentially 10 bits make a silver, 100 silver make a gold, 500 gold makes a plat, 1,000 plat makes a quartz, 200 quartz makes an energy crystal, 500 energy crystals makes a magic crystal. A magic crystal is essentially a place where you can store potency. And they have turned into currency because they're worth something, especially amidst mages. Energy crystals power certain types of vehicles that are not either horse-drawn or dependent on wind or some other natural medium. If they need energy to operate them, they depend on energy crystals. And energy crystals have become so valuable and rare because, you have to be high end to be able to operate it, that if you happen to come across an energy crystal which can range from about the size of a quarter or a silver dollar to about the size of, I don't know, a yardstick and bigger. I mean, energy crystals can get to be about the size and length of this couch. I mean, that's a lot of money right there. I mean, from this end to where that blanket is, and about as wide from the floor to the top of the couch. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of plat. That's what they're worth. About this size, we're talking about 100 plat. About 50 quartz. I know that makes no sense because plat and quartz are not equal, but I pretty much fucked what I detailed, but regardless, yeah. If you have, from about yay high to about yay long, you can retire permanently. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about living high off the hog for the rest of your life. But anyways, back to the top of the character sheet. So, race vit mod AC, and the game that I run stands for adventure class, not armor class or whatever it is in D&D. At mod, whenever you have a class, you have a variable at mod with it. See, basically speaking, whenever you start off your psyche, corpus, and aura start off at ones. That's, if you're just opening up a character and a can of worms along with it, that's what you start off with, is 111, and underneath 111111111. Let's see here, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 ones, essentially speaking. I wish there was a way to pause this so that I could go get myself a cup of coffee. Anyways, the at mod alters your attributes permanently whenever you choose a class. However, what you could do is you could hand design a class and thusly settle up your attributes as you see fit. Anyways, next is armor, spiritual armor, personal armor. Remember in the last video we were talking about how we have to go through that sword, the shield, the plate mail, the chain mail, the cloth armor, and your underoos, and then your personal armor. Personal armor, like detailed before, is essentially speaking the damage resistance that your body, your natural body as an adventurer, gives off that allows you to resist damage. And essentially speaking, it was detailing how you can destroy various other armors. Essentially speaking, personal armor, you can't destroy, you just have to go around it. You have to dish out enough damage to go around it. And essentially speaking, your personal armor is always equal to your corpus. See, there are some things up here at the top that are just always equal to one of your main attributes or to one of your sub-attributes. And we'll get through that. So, armor, that's the shit that you're wearing. Spiritual armor, that's the shit that you're casting. Personal armor, that's the shit you just got. Vitality, that's your health. Okay? And that is equal to your corpus times your vit mod. Remember? Okay. BE, blood essence. This is what vampires suck. Potency. This is your mana. This is what you utilize to cast spells. Unless you're a specialty class in my own game, which I will not be detailing. Legend. Legend. What is your legend? Legend is pertinent to your own legend, and it's a 1 to 100 scale. And each one of these points counts as something called L potency or legend potency. 10 points of potency per. And there's that 10 points of potency per point. There's that 10 points of legendary potency per point of legend. Lots of power. Okay? And each one of these legendary potency is equal to 10 points of regular potency. So we're talking about a lot of power in an itty bitty living space, and you don't even have to be a mage to use this stuff. See, if you're a mage, you use your L potency to cast epic spells. Yeah. And it constantly regenerates. You know, essentially speaking, at the end of every round, see, in every role-playing game, if you're not currently aware of this, you have your turns, or well, you have your actions. You have a number of actions per turn. Sometimes it's one action, especially if you're very, very low level. And this is actually something I have not detailed on this character sheet, and it's something that I feel is necessary. Okay. Um, um, uh, Somewhere on your character, there needs to be how many actions do you get to take per your turn. So I haven't detailed that yet, but we're going to detail that in the future. And essentially speaking, this is something that is equivalent to something else. I just haven't decided yet. You know, this is something that has to happen. And what I'm thinking is that you're going to have a number of actions pertinent to your corpus. You know, it's probably going to end up being something like every 3 points of corpus, you get an additional turn or an additional action. I haven't really decided yet, but we'll talk about this when I have. Essentially speaking, you get a number of actions per your turn. You get a turn. Then the person next to you has a turn. Then that person has a turn. Then that person has a turn. Then that person has a turn. Then you have a turn. Then that person has a turn. Then this person has a turn. Then that guy has a turn. Then I have a turn. Okay? And that's referred to as a round. Every round up to your character, you know, your character takes his actions during the course of his turn, then it goes around back to you. Your L potency has recharged. That's some sick shit, huh? Whereas your normal potency, you have to sleep the night to recharge that stuff. So essentially speaking, what we're talking about is normal, average, everyday magic. I am throwing balls and beams and arcs and then we have L potency. L potency is not so minuscule. L potency is very, very epic. Very, 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 very big time stuff. But how do you earn it? You earn it by earning legend. Earning legend, essentially speaking, is about how many people know your name. Fictionally speaking, game-wise speaking, you have gone off and you have done adventures, great and bad things, and essentially speaking, how many people know you for that? Well, we roll a d8 for that. So you get, let me do it around, guys. You have completed a mission, or a quest, or a this, that, or the other. And essentially speaking, what happens afterwards is you pick up a d8, you put it in your hand, you shake your hand, you roll it, 6. That's how many people, essentially every point in this 6 point is about 10 people. So that's 60 people who know your name. That's only 6 legend. Okay? So 6 legend equates to 6 LP. Legendary potency. Big, big points. Big, big points. You now have 60 LP that you have available to you to utilize. Each one of those individuals gives you for recognition of you. for praise to you, for prayers to you. I know, what does that sound like? For prayers to you, for telling your story, for those people whom they have told your story to telling your story. 60 people gives you 60 legendary potency, epic magic. Or if you're not a mage, that would be something in the ballpark of about epic events. It would be treated as edge. You don't just slay the dragon, because most dragons, they have pretty good armor, and your minuscule weapon wouldn't be capable. It gives you that edge that allows you to slay something far more epic than you are. Yes! And the more you use it, the more people recognize you and the more that you have. And it recharges every round. And if there's just you, it recharges every turn. There you go. So anyways, what else is on there? BE, Potency, Legend, LP, which sounds a lot like a record. SE, Soul Essence. Now, the reason why I created Soul Essence is because I'm a big fan of Soul Reaver. And what does Soul Reaver eat? He eats souls. And what does he attain from that? Soul Essence. What does he live off of? Soul Essence. When the Soul Essence runs out, what happens? It goes back to the spirit realm. Or the spectral realm. Great. Which means, of course, since I'm such a big fan of Soul Reaver, what did I have to do? I had to create characters like that. You gather SE, and you go into the physical realm, and you spook the shit out of people. Next, H2H. Literally, the letter H, the number 2, the letter H, which is directly equivalent to your corpus. And this is essentially the number of dice. Well, actually, it's equivalent to your RS underneath corpus, which is your raw strength, which is, your H2H is your hand-to-hand. I know it's kind of, texty and cheaty, but anyways, it's your hand-to-hand. It is the pull of dice. I've lost all my weapons. What do I use? Bitches. BP, BPT, BP, BPT. I no longer remember what those things are. Well, they're not your blood pool. I'm going to have to get back to you on that. SE, Soul Essence, which is what Soul Eaters eat and what Soul Eaters use to stay in the physical realm. H2H, hand to hand. BP, BPT. I'm going to have to talk to Jesse about that because I don't remember. If you have a guess before I get back to you, I'm actually going to have to sit down and look at my notes to be able to tell you what that is. But essentially speaking, afterwards on a character, there we go, that works. Afterwards on a character, you have your skill sets, and your skill sets consist of your natural abilities, your skills and techniques, your special abilities, your powers, spells, formulas, and vampire powers. Essentially, this is your generic bracket of powers. If you were, for instance, a Guyver, your powers would go under here. If you were a vampire, your powers would go under here. If you were a werewolf, your powers would go under here. If you were a god or a demigod, your powers would go here. And things of that instance. If you were a superhero, your powers would go under here. If you were a mage, a wizard, a sorcerer, or a necromancer, your powers would go here. In the bracket, essentially speaking, you have your special ability, you have your natural abilities, your skill and techniques, your special abilities, and your powers. And then underneath that, you would have your equipment, your belongings and equipment, and your money and jewels, essentially speaking. And this character sheet is more specific to my game than it would be to your game, and so you would have to specialize this. I have to fix something. Hold on a second. So essentially speaking, I'm going to hold this up to the camera so you can pause and copy this information. Okay? One moment, please. Essentially speaking, at the very top here, you might have noticed there's your name. That's the name of your character. And then there's S, N, and N. In my game, the game that I developed, reincarnation is a very, very big thing. Essentially speaking, if you build an awesome character and you get dead, what happens? You look at all the points on your character sheet, with the exemption of SN. Okay, SN would have been soul insight. You look at your character sheet, or soul experience. You look at your character sheet, and accepting your SN and N, or your SE, or SEX, P, S, period, EXP, and your EXP, I'm going to be laughing about this for weeks. You look at all of the points in your character between your bracket, including, you know, your essentially speaking, from here down, you gather up all the points, you add them together, and you divide them by the variables. Your different attributes, sub-attributes, special abilities, skills and techniques, special abilities, natural abilities, blah 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 blah. And you take all of that and you divide you take the variables and you divide everything that you've added together, all of those points, by those variables, and you get an average. And that average you add to your experience, your S experience, and you take that S experience into your next life, and you get to build your character off of it. Isn't that neat? Anyways, that's pertinent to my game, but that's the only bit that I'll share, and the money. And anyways, I'll talk to you guys later. I hope you like what I've shared with you. I know it took a little bit of time, and it was just character sheet BS. But anyways, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.